Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I was going to say good morning. I guess it does depend on where you are. This is the Coyle Report Live. I am Jay Coyle. My partner and brother Chandler Coyle is also here. Today, I'm very excited. We have two guests. Our first time here at the Coyle Report Live to actually have a double-headed feature, if you will. But it warrants it with today's message. We are bringing to you Bandpage, a deep dive. And unlike other chats that we've done in the past where we've kind of dug in about one-on-one tactics, I really hope to kind of get a couple different levels out of today. One of the what is what I've spoken to in the tech-based world about Bandpage. They've asked, wow, what is this thing that's got all these partners and looking at, as we were saying before we went live, the infographics really great, and it does a lot of things to introduce you to the full encompassing services that Bandpage can plug you into. But I'm more interested in the applying it, as I call, boots to the ground. So today we have two people joining us from Bandpage. We have Kevin Wyatt and we have Michael Nurick. And before we got in too much about Bandpage, let's stop for a second and take a step back. And Kevin and Michael, why don't you take a couple minutes of your own time? I'll start with you, Kevin, and give us your background, how you landed where you are at Bandpage, and then wrap up by saying what is your function and role at Bandpage.
Fantastic. Jay, thank you. Jay and Chandler, thanks for having us on, and hello, everyone. Good morning. So my organizing music information started at age 7. My dad was a wedding DJ, and I was his librarian. My job was, when he bought the top 40 on 45s, to create index cards, one by artist, one by title, put them in card catalogs, and then go with him to gigs. And when he said, Jay Giles, centerfold, I'd have to go and find Jay, box 5, and I was literally his librarian. It led to a life of DJing, music collecting, music consumption, and organizing music information. That career path led me, prior to Bandpage, to a company called Rovi that not a lot of people are familiar with, but you use their products all the time, or at least products that employ their patents, specifically TV program guides. Anytime you're pointing a remote control at a TV, you're probably exploiting a Rovi patent. One thing that Rovi does is they license entertainment metadata, including music, including an editorial corpus called the All Music Guide that started as a standalone set of print references that I loved when I was a kid. When I started to work for Rovi and got to work with that team, I realized how challenging it was to maintain a corpus when you have an ever-increasing number of bands and releases that you need to review and organize. And it was really getting out of their control. And I realized you need to be able to not only have an in-house team that's curating that stuff, but ideally you're able to leverage the stakeholders who have an interest in that information being up-to-date and accurate, that being the labels, managers, and artists themselves. That's when I realized that Bandpage was doing precisely that. They had created a collaborative content management system that enables all of these stakeholders, artists, managers, digital agents, label reps, and anyone that has a stake in an artist's presence on a third-party music service. They were giving all of these folks a central place to store and syndicate this information. And I was welcome to join the team 2.5 years ago in the role of business development. My job as BD director, and there's 2 of us at the company that do this. Chris Wiltsey is one of the OGs. He's been here almost 5 years. I've been with the company 2.5. And my role is essentially is three-pronged. Number 1, downstream partners, publishers, our channel partners. So I work with Spotify, iHeartRadio, Live Nation, SoundCloud, and several additional publishers. The idea there is to build the plumbing so that the content that's in your Bandpage profile can be displayed on those platforms, and then to evolve those integrations to not just merely displaying this stuff on, say, an artist profile page, but taking listener data, using it to segment listeners on that platform, and then presenting specific commercial messages, whether it's a concert alert or an invite backstage to specific superfans of specific bands based on their listener data. So that's part 1. Part 2 are the upstream partnerships, and that is all of the deals that we ingest content that pre-populates band profiles so that you don't have to redundantly enter your tour dates or your merchandise listings. So we've done deals with most of the major band merchandisers, Relentless Generator, Music Today Delivery Agent, One Live, Bubble Up. We ingest all of that stuff, map it to the artist profile, and then once it's in there, the admins of that band's profile can sort it and figure out what goes where, essentially, when we syndicate it out. And then the third spoke of what I do is relations with the major labels. I'm close to them here geographically, and also worked with them really closely in my previous gig at Rovi. And there, while we have an artist relations team that's working directly with the sub-labels on sort of a roster by roster, artist by artist level, I'm working at more the operations level of ingesting feeds of products and profiles, biographies, photos, this kind of thing.
Wow. There's a lot to keep yourself busy there. And sorry, some of that was breaking up on my end. I don't know if it was network wide with everybody, but obviously a passionate person, Kevin. So you're going to talk faster than sometimes the feed will ingest. But thank you very much. Let's just jump over to Michael. And Michael, why don't you give us the bigger picture on your backstory and how you ended up at Bandpage and what you do at Bandpage.
Sure. And thank you, Jay and Chandler, for having us this morning. I'm really excited to be here. My musical journey started when I was about 8 years old. Started playing in bands in high school, and then when I got to NYU, the lure of the New York City music scene was too much for me to resist. So I started trying to make a go as a musician. Played with several bands, but by the time graduation came around, and I realized that I wouldn't be able to afford to live in Manhattan or even Brooklyn at that time on what I was making as a musician, I went into banking, as I guess any respectable failing musician would do. So I was an investment banker for some time, and that's where I kind of developed some serious business chops. And I soon returned to the music scene and kind of brought some of those business learnings with me and started applying those lessons to the bands I was playing and working with, focusing on building their fan bases, setting up marketing plans for them, doing all the things that the artists themselves didn't have time to do on their own. And that's when I was introduced to this whole swath of digital services. This is now around 2009, 2010. And were available to musicians, and there was just this clear opportunity to take so much control over your own destiny, your own career, with the advent of these digital services. But it was just so hard to break through the cacophony and for any individual artist to take advantage of any of them to the fullest. So then I started looking for a career change and looking for opportunities where I'd be able to impact musicians on a grander scale. And that's when I found Bandpage. I was actually a user of Bandpage's original inception, which was a Facebook app. And I saw great potential in kind of their philosophy and what they were doing. I had no idea I'd end up working for them 3 years later. But when I moved to the Bay in 2011 for grad school, I started working for other music companies such as Neil Young's Pono, David Hyman's Chosen, and Open Aura, just trying to find where my place would be, and then had a chance meeting with the CMO of Bandpage, and it was again crazy serendipity that the one of the companies that inspired me to move down this path was the one that I ended up connecting with and ended up working for. So at Bandpage, I'm the head of market strategy. And that essentially equates to me being an internal consultant. I kind of get deployed on business-critical projects all across the organization. I touch product engineering, arts relations, marketing, the whole gamut. But the project that's been nearest and dearest to my heart has been around artist data. So kind of leveraging all those data mining skills I took from investment banking and helping artists make sense of their fan data. And I'm happy to share findings from those endeavors later in this call. But we've looked at artists from having an email list from 1,000 fans all the way up to 750,000 fans. And there's some very interesting, consistent patterns about how fans interact with these artists that can help artists better engage with them and build more sustainable careers. So I'm happy to share some of those insights today.
Absolutely, that's awesome. And it's so cool to hear. I think, last week I was at the University of Georgia talking to some music business students, and they're the 19 and 20-year-old version of us, particularly, and they're all musicians and they're all playing in bands and they're looking at what they can get into. And I kind of stopped them and I said, look, it doesn't matter what you get into as long as you get into something. Meaning, find a job, find something that you can latch onto, because I think all of us can talk to, no matter where you ended up. If music was your passion and you brought in other elements, Kevin's DJing, Michael, you're being a performer, but you're being an investment banker and having this other business. What I find most important about where we're at in the music business today, and I don't say the record business, but the music business, is that we can kind of take all these things that weren't typically part of the business prior, and it was left to the main gatekeepers, the publishers and the labels of the world. And now we're kind of breaking down all those walls. And like you said, exactly, Mike, was that even in '09, you'd see it's starting to gel, but no indie band really could grasp hold of it. And before we went live, we talked about Tossman briefly, and I think all of us on this call could say at one moment in time, Tossman had this beacon of, oh, this might be it, but it failed and it didn't turn out to be what we had hoped. But that doesn't mean that as a failure, direct-to-fan or even fan data wasn't important, because then you could just go online right now and look at a myriad of news stories that come out about how important data is, much more than ever, because now that we're in the streaming world, data is, to me, the most important thing. And it's kind of like, A, how you get data, and then B, what in the world you do with the data. So before we get into the data part, yeah, go for it, Kevin. You going to say something?
Point, Jay. I was just going to say, just look at the recent big dollar amount deals in music, and they all revolve around data. Spotify's acquisition of Echo Nest, Apple's of Music Metric, even the Ticketfly acquisition by Pandora was, in some sense, a data play. I mean, they just got their hands on millions of customer records that they can merge with their listener data and be serving both artist and fan more effectively.
And what's so funny is what just struck in my mind when I was talking to this room. There's maybe, I don't know, a dozen or so kids in there, and they truly are kids. And I said something on an email list, and I had one kind of guy tilt his head, and I said, what's wrong? And he said, well, I hadn't thought about getting an email list. And I kind of stopped back. I said, okay, I'm 47, so I know I'm old, and I know you're young. But really, you thought about that? And I kind of said, when you think about your band's data, and I said, and think about it as your data, and I said, I trust me, I'm a fan guy. But when you think about data and how to communicate and how to even engage that, what are you thinking? He's like, oh man, we've mostly been just relying on social media. I said, okay. I said, well, you're a little bit too young to remember MySpace versus Facebook. I said, but no one even uses MySpace anymore. So it's so important. And, like you said, I mean, the proof is in the money that's being paid for these data companies, because they know that's where the core business models we built from.
Well, not only does no one use MySpace, but when MySpace relaunched, a year and a half ago, they cut off a band's access to the years of data and follows and all of, really the core value of the service. They cut it off from the bands. That's why the bands walked away. It's like that was the only reason they were still there, was for that data.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, let's jump in as far as Bandpage is concerned, and I'm really excited to get to the data part. But give me the 10,000-foot view, and you kind of talked a little bit about it, Kevin, in your intro. But what I really want to understand, some of these key partners that you work with, and in your sales pitch to why a band should be and using Bandpage, but how could they use it? Give us the bigger picture, first of all, of kind of what you're currently doing with Bandpage and how you would sell it to an indie band, why it's important for them to be utilizing it.
Sure. No, thanks, Jay. So in a sentence, Bandpage helps musicians manage and monetize their presence on third-party music platforms. It's really as simple as that. We're not focused on being a consumer destination and getting people drawn to Bandpage.com itself. We're really a B2B play where we're giving musicians and their handlers access to a suite of tools that help them manage content around their profile, and that's biography, photos, links to videos and audio, metadata like genre and hometown, as well as all of your tour dates and ticket links, as well as all of your merch listings, from recorded music to t-shirts to come on a canoe ride with me, whatever you can think of. We're taking all of that content and syndicating it to where people are already consuming music and engaging with musician content. That really is our premise, and to the data side of things, we want to take all of the return path data that comes out of forging these partnerships and use that to refine and strengthen the way that we're presenting this content to fans in these third-party music environments. We never want the presentation of a concert alert or of a VIP opportunity to feel like advertising. It should feel like a member benefit of being a part of that service, because it's so targeted and so well calibrated that you're really only getting it for the bands that you care about the most.
Right. Now let me ask you this. So with that third-party mentality and kind of being the main portal in which you can then syndicate that out there, then the goal should be to go into a Bandpage account, like you said, and it's not going to be the thought process of this is like another MySpace or Facebook page, so someone can come and gather info. That will be there. The premise of it is truly for somebody like me who works with bands and is in charge of their sales and marketing. I can then go to my Bandpage account and use that as the main conduit to make sure that I'm putting the right data in there, and then hoping that as you guys keep building these partners, that it's being syndicated out there. Is that correct?
That is largely the case. Two asterisks to put alongside that, which is one of the channels one can syndicate to is their own website. We have widgets where you can take just tour dates or just profile information or just merch, and using our widget tool, you can drop that on your existing band website. So if you already have band.com and you don't want to have to redundantly enter tour dates into band.com, then you can take the band page widget and the tour dates that are in that band page profile and automatically be displaying it and syncing it to your website. The second asterisk is that we also have a website. If you don't have a band website, you can use Bandpage and hook it up to, if you register the URL band.com, you can have it point to your Bandpage profile. It's not as sophisticated, I'd say, as say what Wix is doing with Wix Music in terms of adding proprietary store and checkout elements. Although we do have a checkout PayPal integration, or even Bandzoogle. I think Bandzoogle lets you create an even more elegant site. It's pretty powerful though. I use it for my DJ business, and it's good enough for me. So yeah, there are two ways that you can be using it to manage the properties that you control. But what we really focus most of our attention and engineering resources on is helping you control environments that you used to have zero access to. I mean, you had no control over what photo would be next to your name in Shazam. That's no longer the case. Right. You now have control over that.
Okay, very cool. Now let me ask you this: you start talking about these partners, and is there a methodology, or should I say, is there just a toolkit for a band to say, okay, let me make sure, and I'll use an analogy of setting up music through CD Baby or TuneCore, and I can go in and I'm setting up an album for the Figs, and I have the image, and I have the tracks, and blah, 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 and I want to then select where it's syndicated out to. So it's going to tell me where it goes. So is that a functionality within Bandpage so that I can have a ability to then say, hey, I'm going to syndicate this?
Yes, short answer is yes, and this is probably a good time for me to share a screen.
Yeah.
And start to visualize some of this.
Sure.
So can everybody see the browser with what we call Guitarman?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Guitarman, I mean, in a single infographic, this describes our business right now. You're the musician. We are Bandpage, the content management and syndication engine, and these are all of our downstream partners. Spotify, we send offers. Shazam, we send offers and photos. YouTube, we send offers. Google, we send show dates. Rhapsody, we send full profiles as well as offers. So it's a little different for each platform. It's not that every platform takes all of our content. That's always our objective, and some of them want to go live from day one with everything. We just did a deal with Deezer. That's going to be precisely that. I mean, from the get-go, they want to use full profiles and full ticketing tour dates and full merchandise, which is amazing. But as it tends to go with publishers, they do it in a linear fashion. Well, right now we have an immediate need for tour dates. Let's integrate that first. Then we'll follow on with profile content, and then we'll follow on with merchandise, or whatever order they end up choosing. So that's the infographic. I used tab suspenders, so these are all going to take a sec to load here. All right, so I'm logged into Bandpage. This is where you can see that I'm the admin for demo purposes for two bands, the Mowglis and Mr. George Clinton. If to protect their privacy, I'm not going to click through the Mowglis' entire profile, but just to give you a sense of the CMS, and then I'll cut over to my personal one, but this one's just better populated than mine. You have a 93% profile strength here, and this is just where you put your primary photo. That's the photo that if Shazam's going to feature one photo before you get to the gallery, it's going to be this photo. Over here, you'll see there's a whole separate section for additional gallery photos. And then biography, and you can authenticate into Twitter and Facebook, all of your official websites, genre, and so on and so on. So, I should note that more sensitive information like phone number, email, booking management, that's not stuff that we syndicate or display. The only place that it might show up is on your personal website if you use that tool, but this stuff isn't displaying in Shazam or anything. So keep your eye on this image, because I'm now going to quickly take you through some of the places where that image lives across the internet. First, the Mowglis do use this is Bandpage's web tool. So they are using our website tool to create this experience. Microsoft has a streaming service. Used to be called Xbox Music. It recently was renamed Groove. Here is the Mowglis profile on there, and there is that image yet again. And on Google, when you search for a band name plus the search term tour dates, that's when you get this thing across the top. If you just search for the Mowglis, you'll still get this knowledge box on the right, and we are powering the tour dates that you're seeing across the top here. So they are pulling that from us via some code that they built into their spiders. Looking at iHeartRadio, there's that image again from the Mowgli's profile page. Moving over to their Vivo channel on YouTube. Here, we actually are baking offers into the videos themselves. So there we go. That right there is fed from BandPage. If I click on the hoodie, it's going to take me to their third-party merch site. So they use a company called Go Merch. So you don't have to like list inventory in BandPage. That is an option. If you don't have a store, you can use BandPage as your store. But if you do already have a store, whether it's Go Merch or a Shopify store or whatever it is, you can list that third-party link, and we're just going to send people straight to it. No interstitials, no app installs. It's just super clean. It just gets you to the product that you expressed interest in back on YouTube. Cool. Moving on, this is their profile on Live Nation, also powered by BandPage. On SoundCloud, now everything I've shown you up until now, with the exception of YouTube, is opt-out, meaning when you update your BandPage profile, we are automatically sending that stuff to all of those platforms. You do have the ability from within the BandPage editor, and I'll show you this in a couple minutes, to opt out of any of those individual platforms for any reason. And then we have a handful of integrations that are presently opt-in, which means you have to proactively say, I want my stuff on this platform. That's the case with SoundCloud. When you authenticate from, this is a little confusing, stay with me on this, and we are cleaning this up. We're working with SoundCloud to make this better. But as of today, if you want your profile photo and bio to show up on SoundCloud, you control that from within your BandPage profile. That's an opt-in. You authenticate, enter your SoundCloud credentials, and voila, the stuff shows up over here. If you want your show dates to show up, which they're using the BandPage show date tool, you actually presently control this from SoundCloud. When you go to SoundCloud, there's a profile management section, and you go in there and you enter the BandPage URL. And when SoundCloud detects that it's a BandPage URL, it automatically renders this widget. So it's a little confusing to get all your stuff on SoundCloud. Like I said, we are cleaning that up. I'm hoping, within the next quarter or so, we can deploy something that's a little more streamlined. And then lastly, we've got Shazam is also live with photos today, and sometime certainly before the end of the year, and I think it might even be before Thanksgiving holiday, they're going live with offers as well. We have several additional in the pipeline. These are the ones that I can show you that are live today. I forgot a big one, which would be Spotify. Going to the Mowgli's profile in Spotify. Do they have any offers up here now? No, they may not. We actually have been having an issue with the Spotify feed as of this morning, first time in months and months. So hopefully they'll fix that by the end of this call. I've been sort of doing that with my left hand while I'm doing this with my face. All right, so let me go to a BandPage. All right, so now we're inside the editor, and I am managing the profile music by BoostBus. BoostBus is my DJ name with umlaut. People think it's BusBus because it's hard to get an umlaut across the internet. So this is the same page that we saw for the Mowglis. This is my basic profile photo, biography, authentication into third-party socials, and so on and so on. On the music tab, I'm able to upload directly any track that I want, which actually adds it to my SoundCloud profile. We don't actually host any music locally at BandPage that shows up in a profile. Or you can pull in any tracks that are already uploaded to your SoundCloud profile. So it's a nice SoundCloud integration, at least with respect to the way that we host audio. I don't have any upcoming shows, but if I did, they'd be in here. I can add one manually. If you go over here and see this little option called Event Sync, it automatically sets it to Bandpage Smart Events. So we, as I mentioned before, I'm doing in my business development role a bunch of deals with not just merchandisers to ingest their inventory, but also ticketers to ingest their inventory, whether that's Axis or Ticketmaster, Ticketfly, Brown Bag, taking all of that and deduplicating it, making it nice, and pre-populating your profile so that you don't have to redundantly enter this stuff. Alternately, if I do want to manage show dates directly for my profile, I can switch this to manual, and then it will stop looking for events from the aggregated feed and just defer to me. And then if I want to use this as my master list and export it to other services for whatever reason, for record keeping internally, I can export it as a CSV. Photos, this is where I can add to my photo gallery. Right now I only have 2. Videos, I can take videos from Vimeo and YouTube. And then store. Store is where I can add a product. It can be merchandise, an in-person experience like VIP or play horseshoes with me before my set. That's a real one. Amberlin actually did something where I think they played cornhole with their fans before their set, and they made something like 25 grand extra on a leg of their tour by throwing that up there and giving super fans 10 minutes to just have a beer with them basically. Online experience here. We've done some interesting things here. Dead Prez, this was awesome. Dead Prez said, hey, send me your beats, and I will basically do a one-on-one consultation to help you take those beats and transform them into, or lyrics. Start with lyrics, and I'll help you with a beat. Start with a beat, I'll help you with lyrics. Either way, let's get 8 bars of a song that you will own outright for a fee. So you were basically getting him as a consultation service as a producer engineer. That was an awesome experience. You could do master classes on whatever instrument you play. I mean, this is just another way to engage your fans and also make some money from your bedroom. And then other is anything that doesn't fit these 3 categories. For the checkout destination, here's where I would choose. I don't have a store, so I'm going to use Bandpage's PayPal integration for checkout. Or I already list this stuff in a store, whether that's Amazon or GoMerch or my Shopify instance. And in that case, you'd be able to enter third party. So that's how you create an offer. Once it's created, then you would see a grid with the sales for that product. So that is how you enter content. I'm going to switch over to the audience tab. Here's how you control the syndication of that content.
There you go. Okay.
And this is what you were referring to, Jay. So here, if I click on any of these, it's going to tell you exactly what we syndicate, what the benefit is to having that syndication enabled, and then the option to disable it if for any reason you don't want that content going to that platform. It's exceedingly rare that people use it, but we give it as an option. So these are all the places that you can syndicate. I didn't talk about Kick Jam. That one's mobile only, and I don't really have a way to represent it. Kick, for those who are unfamiliar, and if you're unfamiliar, it's probably because you're not 14. I had no sense of this company until we did the deal with them. That said, they have 200 million registered users and claim over 40% of U.S. teens engage with the chat app multiple times per month. So this thing is massive with a certain demographic. Kick just got a $50 million, they're based in Canada, they just got a $50 million investment from a company called Tencent. Tencent owns another chat app called WeChat that is mega in China specifically. And they want to make Kick the quote-unquote WeChat of the West. And what they mean by that is instead of it just being a chat app, that chat app becomes a platform for everything else you want to do with your mobile device. From within the chat app, if you're talking about going to a show tonight, buy the tickets, order the Uber, order the pizza for afterwards, whatever it is. They want to bring all of those transactions and all, into the app. And the first one they're launching is the music vertical, and they're using all of our content to create the musician profiles there, the bio, the photos, the videos, merchandise, tour dates, the whole thing. This is launched in a public beta. They're doing a much louder version 3 launch, I believe, early next year. So you'll be hearing more about this pretty soon.
Very cool. No, quick question for you. This is fantastic. This is exactly what I'd hope. Heard from more about it. Play those, pay attention, watching this either live or at replay. Just the depth which you guys have partnered to make it easier for bands to control. Kind of what Michael was saying earlier. Real quick, I'm thinking about with the surge of Kickstarters and Indiegogos and pledge platform projects that bands are taking on. Is there a functionality as you walk through there and you had a merchandise? Would those crowdfunding sites, if you had an exclusive to offer, would you be able to syndicate or not syndicate? Would you be able to then drive people to those pages How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we already have an integration and partnership with Pledge Music. We work pretty closely with Benji. We are, I believe, Michael, do we have their entire inventory at this point?
I believe so, though don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I think their entire inventory is being ingested and syndicated. And even though we don't have those deals in place with Indiegogo or Kickstarter, one can go directly into their Bandpage profile, into that store section, and here is where you could, you'd have to redundantly create the offer, but the link would link out to the Indiegogo, Kickstarter, wherever you want it to.
And that's exactly what I was thinking. Is if you didn't have a partnership, that certain key things would be, especially as you walk through the examples of the exclusives. Totally agree. If you're an indie band and you're doing any type of crowdfunding or crowdsourced, like pre-order, then you definitely want to make sure that you can advantage of stuff. So that's very cool.
Yep. And there you go. And then Pledge Music is here. So I mentioned before that some of our channels are opt-out. These are most of our opt-out channels. Opportunities, these are our opt-in channels. So if you use any of these services and want already, or you're planning on creating a new account over there, and you want to repurpose and synchronize some of the content that you're curating in your Bandpage profile for display on these third-party services, you come in here and click Setup. So in your band profile in Pledge Music, if you want to port over photos, shows, videos, click Setup. And using an API, you just authenticate, you enter your Pledge credentials, and then voila.
Got it. Awesome. Very cool. No, man, that's exciting. And holy cow, what?
There's a lot going on here. To real quickly finish the functionality, here is where you can design your website. Like I said, it's elegant. I mean, it does give you a lot of control over the look of it. Mine's super clean by design. Widgets, this is where you can choose, and these are all the different widgets, and about the band widget, your tracks, your show listings, photo gallery, embedded videos, store, so on. And then we still do have a Facebook app, and a pretty powerful one. We actually went back and made some enhancements to it this year. And in here, you can really trick out your Bandpage app that loads within your Facebook fan page or profile.
Okay, yeah, and that's like Michael. That was my introduction of Bandpage, was through their Facebook page app, which I remember using for a couple of different bands. So very cool. Wow, that's now. Let me ask you this: with the web page and all the stuff, is there any fees to a band to use those tools?
The only time that money changes hands. Hold on, I'm headed back so that I can see you here. Where are you? The only time the money changes hands is when you sell something, we take a percentage. So there's no setup fee, there's no subscription fee. We used to have a premium set of website management tools that we charged a fee for. We kept the tools and took away the fee. So that all that stuff that used to be in the premium section is now available at no charge. So yeah, you can use all of this and be syndicating this, controlling your presence in all these platforms, and not spend a dime. Our revenue model is that we take something on the back end, so we share in your success essentially.
Yeah. So if an offer is served through a Bandpage syndication, that's where you'll take some points on it.
That's correct. And the numbers on that is if you're entering things directly into Bandpage, it's 15%. A lot of the deals that we do with merchandisers, because we're creating an efficiency of ingesting 600 stores at once, we're able to justify offering a lower percentage there, typically around 10%.
Okay. Cool. But an offer is an offer and selling something. So awesome. Very cool. Well, off of that was incredibly deep. I wanted to pass it over to Michael and have you kind of piggyback onto that, add anything that you feel that might have been missed, and then more importantly, let's talk about the most exciting thing to me, the data that you guys can glean from it, and like you said, point blank, how to take all this data and make it actionable for the bands.
Absolutely. Just to kind of finish off on the kind of pricing side of things with Bandpage, it's kind of one of my favorite things about this company, and one of the things that attracted me to it in the first place is that we're only going to be successful as a company if the artists that use our product are successful as an artist. So our incentives are completely aligned with the artist community, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that everyone who works here is either absolutely music obsessed, Kevin White included, or a musician themselves, also actually Kevin White included. But yeah, so let's go to the data side of things. So let me screen share as well to give you a sense of the kind of work that I've been exploring with artists. So artists of any size, really small or large, if they focused on collecting email addresses, they own fan data. That's the first step. So this is an example of some data sets that we've received from an artist. I've anonymized all of this, so don't be afraid to look at it. This is all fake data, but it's just for illustrative purposes. So here, this particular artist had an email list. They also ran a pre-order campaign for an album they launched, and they have all those sales records. They have an e-commerce store, whether it was Bandpage or Shopify or some other provider. They have access to sales data there as well. They've run email campaigns for tickets for shows. And then more generic email campaigns. So these are 5 different data sources. And one thing that we realized very quickly is that if you own fan data, there's a very high probability that you're not doing much with it. So these are all data sets that exist in different silos. They're not talking with each other. You may have fans that appear in all 5, fans that appear in 1. And those are all different signals that those fans give you. Like someone who purchases a ticket may be more of a fan than someone who just signed up for an email list passively. So then we take all this data and we create this kind of master database where we collate all the data sources together. We can quantify your fans across many different metrics, most importantly of all revenue, and I'll explain why in a moment. And then, of course, across here, you can see what types of items they purchased in the past, how much, when they showed up on these different sources, how often they've engaged, and so on and so forth. And then we go one step further and actually do some analysis on that, try to make some sense of what this data means. Of course, it looks very different depending on the artist, but we've done this analysis, again, for artists with lists as small as 1,000 fans to as large as 750,000 fans. And one thing I want to share with you guys today is this incredible, consistent pattern of how fans spend money with regard to the artists that they love. This is a curve of monetization. So along the x-axis here, we see the cumulative fan base. So we're looking at like the first 17% or so of fans. And then on the left side is percent of revenue that fan base contributes. So actually, let me just swap over to another view here. So this is now actual data. So this is averages across all the artists that we've done analysis for. We've done about 30 of these analyses in the past year. And this pattern is incredibly consistent. Only 2% of fans contribute to half of all the money that artists make from their direct-to-fan channels. And that's from sources like, naturally their online store, but also things like pledge music campaigns or any other kind of monetization campaigns, whether it's crowdfunding or pre-orders or VIP ticket sales. It is important to note that, of course, music sales and general admission ticket sales are absent from this data because that's data that, at the Stern status quo, most artists don't have access to.
Correct.
But it is very interesting to note how consistent this pattern is. It doesn't matter if you're a small band or an international superstar. Generally, the average is 2% of your fan base contributing to half of all your revenue from these direct channels. And what that tells us is just the importance of identifying and super serving your top fans. And one of the brilliant things that's come about with the kind of digital music revolution is that fans are no longer anonymous. In the pre-digital era, a fan would walk into a Tower Records, may they rest in peace, and buy a CD and then walk out, and you'll never know if that person listened to your CD once or if they completely burned lasers listening to your music. But now you do. With the advent of streaming, every single action that a fan takes can be tracked in some form, whether it's just straight listener data or if they're favoriting your track or sharing it or adding it to a playlist. These are all signals that can indicate what kind of fan they are and could help an artist determine how to best interact with them. So at Bandpage, we talk a lot about experiences and the value that experiences could have to artists. But it's kind of difficult to get that message across because a lot of artists I speak to, they don't really know how to go about it. There's some fears about gouging their fans. They don't want to charge $50 for a meet and greet. which is completely understandable, but I think there are very authentic and real ways to monetize on experiences, while also investing in your fan base. So just to kind of use an example, there's this one artist named Jacob Collier, who's a young, early 20-something jazz prodigy, an absolutely insane musician.
Yeah, check him out.
Yeah, again, his name is Jacob Collier. He held a series of masterclasses on Bandpage. These were virtual experiences via Google Hangout, where you sign up to take a class from him. And I sat in on one of these experiences, and it was on building multi-part harmony. And maybe less than a dozen fans showed up. It was a sold-out event. It was small, intimate for a reason. And he broadcasted from his bedroom studio out in England. And the amazing part about this experience is that it went for more than an hour longer than it should have, because the fans and Jacob were just jiving back and forth so awesomely. We ended up actually rearranging Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and everyone was just having such a great time and just really digging this shared experience that they're having with one of their favorite artists. That, you know, Jacob stayed on the line until, I think, after 1 in the morning London time. And I think he had something important to do that next morning, and that's eventually when he had to cut it short. But he was having a great time as well. So this, on one hand, earned him extra revenue just for some hours of his time, having fun with his fans. But at the same time, this was him investing in this top 2%. Because the kind of fan that will show up to an experience like that are the ones that are super engaged, that are really, really into that artist. And because now that they have that shared experience with Jacob, I guarantee you they're going to be lifelong fans. And he just increased the value that he'll derive from that fan, but also building this deeper connection.
And he probably amplified his socials, right? I mean, who participating in that experience isn't going to tweet about it, Facebook about it, just tell everyone what they just did?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how are we translating that at Bandpage? How are we helping artists kind of identify who the super fans are? So there are two things that we focus on when we're working with our music streaming partners, our downstream partners, as we call them. And that's behavioral targeting and moment of intent messaging. So behavioral targeting is simply identifying superfans based on their behavior. So we started investigating this concept with Rhapsody earlier this year, where they, for the first time to my knowledge in the business, shared listener data with us. And we were able to analyze that data and determine, based on how often a fan was listening, how many days in a month they were listening, and relative difference in listening behavior month to month, what kind of fan that listener is. And then we were able to take artist offers in our system and super serve those fans with tailored offers via email. And not surprisingly, they engaged more with those communications than any other prior email communication that Rhapsody had sent to those fans. So that's using listening data to identify fans. But then there's moment of intent messaging. So there's this concept that Google pioneered with Google Search that we've all experienced, but maybe aren't really aware of. That, you know, when you type in a search term, let's say you have an example we like to use at Bandpage. Let's say you have a broken vacuum cleaner, and you go to Google and you type in vacuum repair. Google recognizes your keyword. It recognizes that you are, in that moment, focused entirely on repairing your vacuum cleaner. So in their ad algorithms, they know to dynamically serve you an ad for vacuum repair, and that will often be the top result. And of course, they built their entire business on this because it's a more engaging way to talk with a customer. If they're thinking about you at that moment, that's the best time to show them your offer as it relates to their intent. So the way that we are testing that also with Rhapsody is through push notifications. So we developed this in-house system that would recognize when a fan is engaging with an artist's music. And in near real time, once it hit a certain threshold of listening that identifies them as a superfan, we then show them a tailored offer that's usually of a higher value, usually an experience or signed merch or some kind of bundle item. And again, not surprisingly, they're engaging with those kinds of messages far more. So when we combine targeting and moment of intent advertising, we're getting twice the click-through rate over those Google tailored search ads. We're getting 10 times more engagement over Facebook posts. It becomes essentially the most powerful way an artist can reach their fans. And we're kind of betting the farm here on developing and deploying that technology network-wide so that any artist in our system can kind of take advantage of that data and that targeting ability.
Cool, cool. Can you think of anything? Do you want to jump in on that?
I just really blown away with the 2%, 50%.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about it, there's two places that do this really well already, and the music industry is just coming around to this. One is free-to-play mobile games, and not surprisingly, our CMO comes from that world. They understand, the customization of gameplay on a per-player level based on their behavior. If you tend to purchase in-app a power-up thing when it's in the trees and not in the ground, and in your instance of the game, it's always in the trees. Right. They're already doing it well. And the other place that I see it done well is Vegas. You look at these DJs that are making $300,000 a night. The reason they're able to pay them that is not just because the room is filled with people who paid $50 to $100 to get in the door, but the VIP bottle service table right next to the DJ is selling for $10, $20, sometimes $40,000. Right. That's your super fan. That's your whale. And by the way, that whale's not going to spend that money unless he's surrounded by minnows that are saying, "Who's that guy?" Right. So it's like every strata has its role in that little social ecosystem.
Right. Well, even Facebook alone is a case of where you're hanging out on Facebook and it's an experience. Why do you go back to Facebook? Your fear of missing out or in the moment experience. And what we see a lot with pledge music campaigns that Jay manages or consults on is the ones that do really well are they become a pop-up fan club. So although I hate the terms whales, minnows, dolphins, and I know where it comes from and what you're trying to convey, and not literally hunting, it's just feeding them, is that we see a lot with teaching direct to fan in the Berkeley classes, and it's sort of the concepts that were made famous by the Topspin crew was, how big of a fan are you? And what I like what Bandpage is doing, what you guys are sort of serving two needs in that not only you're putting artist metadata out there from information profiles and all that, you're also giving them the opportunity. For a lot of these artists, it's probably the first time they've ever experimented with selling something other than a CD and a T-shirt. The VIP experience is you don't have to be a 10,000 email list band to have someone who wants to learn guitar. I mean, I was a fan of a band in Chicago for, I think at the time, probably 5 years, like a super fan of just a local band. They barely toured out of the Midwest. And I kept asking their lead guitarist for lap steel lessons. And he thought I was joking. And I said, I will pay for it, And I look back into that was like the best hour, have somebody that I look up to as a player. I bought a lap steel so I could learn from him. It was that, and that's just a perfect example of like a local band even will have someone who just wants to spend time with somebody to look up to. Like
he should run that as an experience. I'll buy that.
Yeah, he's in Grand Rapids now, but yeah, he could do. I guess now he could do a Stage It or something, private
Right.
stages. But yeah, I mean, he showed. I remember I walked away from that lesson with one trick, which made it worth it. He refused to take my money. I ended up having to buy the band a round of shots at their next show, but that was the cost of it. But I still think about that. We're friends. 15 years later, I still mention to him, and we actually set him up with his wife. So we became friends, and he's like, "Yeah, I remember that. I thought that was really cool." And now you see it all the time. You see just these experiences at all levels, which Pledge Music, going back to the Pledge Music integration with Spotify, one of the things that sort of broke my heart, and I know it broke Benji's heart, is when that happened, it was sort of buried. It was hard to find and on the desktop interface, and I don't even know on
Well,
the
you
mobile
know,
interface.
that struggle we could not be more familiar with. Just to clarify, Chandler, the Pledge integration is actually Pledge to Bandpage to Spotify.
Right,
So
yeah.
we're ingesting Pledge along with StageIt, and we actually do StageIt's inventory as well. And yeah, that is a challenge. It is at the very bottom of a band's profile on mobile. Even given that, the click and conversion rates are pretty good, which suggests, they're better than you'd think they'd be at the bottom. I mean, it's sub 2%, for sure.
Well, still, yeah. Well, the one thing Jay and I have been struggling with, because it's been around for a year, is Pledge won't share data with us. You know, they won't give us any hard data, and so it's this. This will be public, but Topspin was famous for saying things that were cool and will make artists money, but then not really sharing hard data specific to, like, someone that's not Paul McCartney or the Buzz Band. You want to know, like, how does Veruca Salt convert from having that? They're a legacy band with a lot of traffic going through Spotify, listening to Seether and Volcano Girls. And they release a new album. There's a Pledge campaign. What was like the impressions and click-throughs and stuff? That would probably, having that data, even if it's 2%, which some people might view as bad, but if you know that an email, like visits to a website, if you get 1 to 2% conversion rate on your email signups, that's average. That's not bad. I mean, it would be great if you could say 30%, but it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. But if more people knew that there was actual click-throughs, they might tend to that, like, because Pledge is an opt-in, and I know Pledge isn't something everyone does every day, but there's a lot of Pledge campaigns launched, and if you have to opt in for it to show up on your Spotify profile, some of it might be education.
Clarification, thank you I realized that I probably confused it. The only part of our Pledge partnership that's opt-in is you repurposing your profile content onto your Pledge profile, but the ingest of Pledge offers, that's happening automatically. Do you get
to choose which offers, or how is it?
You do. So once, if you visit your profile, and there's a combination of things you've directly uploaded to Bandpage, as well as things that are auto-populated from the feeds that we ingest, you can then literally drag and drop the sort order as to what displays. And Spotify, for example, only has 3 tiles, and it's the first 3 listed in your Bandpage profile, the ones that will display on Spotify.
Right. Do you foresee Spotify? They keep focusing on giving artists data, and I am impressed with that, but I still think it's not enough. An artist, there's this disconnect between artist and fan. If I keep streaming an artist all day, every day I'm streaming a particular artist, and I don't know that they have a Pledge campaign or an Indiegogo campaign or a Kickstarter campaign. It's just a lost opportunity for Spotify to serve that artist who they're using that content. I get that Spotify's audience really are their investors and subscribers. But it's just a shame that you can go and some fans would say to artists, I didn't know you were playing in my town, so I know they're buying what they bought Ticketfly, and they're integrated with, Pandora bought Ticketfly, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of that going on, but it's these Pledge campaigns, like with the presidents of the United States of America, they came out of sort of nowhere for a lot of people and had a very successful Pledge campaign that Jay was part of. And there were people in Chicago who were like, that I talked to, they're like, I didn't even know that existed. And
Chandler, that question is the question I pretty much ask myself every day when I get up. How can I advance our integration? What can I do today to advance our integration? And look, Spotify is a very data-driven company in every product decision that they make. And they haven't given us an integration that tosses off enough data to support a deeper integration. That's fine. It is what it is. But now we've gone and done integrations with Rhapsody, and we're about to deploy with Deezer, a similar, targeted. Right. And now we are getting data that we can share with other services, if only in the aggregate, to say, look, if you do this right, we're not talking sub 2% click rates. We're talking 10%, 12%.
Right.
We're talking things that blow every other form of fan marketing out of the water.
Even if Spotify wants to hook into some of that revenue stream, so be it. If it's a sale that wouldn't happen without Spotify participating, then like Pledge Music cut cut Spotify into that. You know,
we would rather see them take a cut. Spotify does not take a cut of anything that displays in their environment today. That's in our deal. We would love them to take a cut because then they'd have the incentive, right, to really advance the integration.
And I just think it's so important. I mean, it's so important what you guys are doing because, like I said earlier, the future is so much in streaming, and I'm sure all of us on this line, we stream for convenience and we stream for probably what's the word? Discovery. But I'm sitting next to a stack of CDs. Sitting next to a room full of CDs and vinyl, I'm always going to buy the tangible. But if I'm casually bumping into a band that either like the Presidents I forgot about for somebody or I never heard of, because I'm not as frequently going to the record store like I observed up me that I literally can just use the phone and go buy, have it sent to my house. That's a beautiful thing, and the mentality that most bands should have is growing your fan base and not being scared of the Pandoras of the world and the Spotifys of the world and all these great opportunities where your music can get discovered, but then not to think about or not to forget about that there are going to be some people that are going to turn to that 2% and that will spend money and that could buy an experience and do all those other things. But then there's a whole other side of carrying and feeding those fans. But I still want to get across how important it is to have the mechanism and the technology in place so that utilizing something like Bandpage can allow an indie band to actually get awareness while selling tickets, while selling downloads or vinyl or whatever the case may be, and then owning all that data and having the ability to engage and understand who these people are so that you can make concerted focus efforts on where should you tour and who are these people and what can you do with that. But as Chandler said, I mean, the data that we can't get out of the streaming services, I think it's slowly coming, and I'm in Pandora now looking at the AMP data, which hugely, just from the last night, I got access to two the bands I work with, the Figs and Sloan, and I am dumbfounded at the lack of tracks on one band, the Figs, and gobsmacked at certain tracks that are getting the most plays on Pandora for Sloan. That I think the band needs to know that because it's like, wow, that's impressive. Who are these people? Why are those tracks being played? And it's just. It's data that's so useful for us to make business decisions.
Well, Jay, you're a great illustration of this. It's not either or. It has to be all of the above. Yeah. You have to work digital and physical channels. You have to work social, if only to be mining for that 2%. It's like on one end of the spectrum, you're a guy who was always going to buy the physical. On the other end, I also have a record room. It's a 2.0 is under construction right now. Usually I'd have records behind me, but I had a friend over with an 11-year-old son, and he walked in the room, and one wall is CDs, and the other side is records. And he looks at the wall of CDs. He's like, "Look at all those CDs." And he looks at the other side and goes, "Look at all those big CDs." Like, didn't even know what to call them.
Yeah. Well, one great moment of my life was just about a week ago. My oldest child, who was 14, said, "I want to get a record player for Christmas." I was like, "Thank you, God." Because it was like the best news to my ears. It's like my 14-year-old wants to have a record player. Haley.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was crazy. And earlier today I was sharing with Chandler and some other guys, I found a cassette player that has a USB port. And I was like, I'm literally sitting on a full of old cassettes, and some of them are my old bands. The music only exists on cassette. And it's like, well, I want to get that stuff. So I was just like, but then I do have, I have Sloan cassettes. I have Navy Blues on cassette that's never been opened that I'm like, that'd be really cool. I'd love to hear what that Navy Blue sounds like on cassette. It's stuff like that. I got the first Figs release was a self-released cassette. Most of the stuff that we did back in the 90s with my bands was self-released cassettes. I mean, those were the calling cards of the day, right? Well, a lot of that stuff was never digitized. So anyways, my point being is there's great things that people can do, and just like we're geeking out of it, there's fans of other bands that those fans are also in bands, and they could use that passion and figure out what can we do? What's another way to get people to listen to us, or what else would they buy? And just the whole I know I blew some of my students' mind when I told them how cassettes are taking off again, but just going to the Urban Outfitters webpage, they've got all these cassettes that are being sold, and they've got cassette players. It's like, well, there you go. Something physical that you could serve through. Imagine serving a Spotify thing for $5, you can get a cassette of a band. I mean, for $5, it's like, yeah, I'll buy that. How cool.
And I actually just heard that
Were there some
Blink-182
questions that
is
come in?
releasing their. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to share an anecdote that I heard recently. Blink-182 is releasing one of their older albums on cassette tape now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Burger Records out of the greater LA area, the Orange County area, they've been releasing cassette versions of albums for a cassette store, which is cassette record store today version of cassettes. They had the exclusive to Geffen's release for Dookie by Green Day, right. And I think Veruca Salt's releasing their last record through Burger on cassette also, their most recent one, Ghost Notes. They came out and so it's just there is a market for physical in both vinyl and CD and now in cassette, and that's whatever format it is, it's something new and different to offer somebody tangibly that is a great counter reaction to the convenience of streaming. And I think will I go out to I have bought some Burger cassettes because they don't exist in other formats, and it was cool to get a Burger Live bootleg that was authorized by the band The Beat, not the English Beat but The Beat, Paul Collins, and it's a great live recording, and that's one of those things where I don't have digital. Well, if I buy that $30 USB cassette thing, I can have that digitally. So, yeah. Anyways, what other questions have come in here? Anything?
I don't see any questions, but I had one. Michael, like the data that you were demonstrating, is any of that something that we could share with the class? Like the presentation that you had, little presentation that you had.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to share this. Oh, actually, I realize I'm the only one looking at it right now. Hold on.
Anything that, because we struggle, Jay and I struggle with getting an anonymized but useful data, like that. Some of our students are data nerds. I'm a data nerd. Jay likes to look at the data, and a lot of our students like to look at that. So that those of us that are the Berkeley Online thing, and we struggle these days. We used to get a lot from Topspin, but that's obviously fallen by the wayside. And some of the other companies are a little bit, I don't know, either too busy or too protective of showing stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to share this sample with you because what's nice, again, it's completely anonymized, but it is real.
Right.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, there are some. Well, I know that Mike King would love to see this, and he's the Berkeley Online VP of Marketing / course author of, I think, three of the courses that Jay and I teach. Jay and I teach 3 different courses over a period of time, and this type of stuff, especially the breakdowns and stuff, it's something that we live and breathe every day. Is everyone talks about expanding their audience and rising above the noise, and Jay and I keep pointing and saying, look behind you. You've got 2,000 fans on your mailing list, and it's hard to get them to understand that. But if you give them a number like, hey, that 2% of your audience, the ones that talk to you and engage with you all the time and open your emails, they're probably giving you 50% of your revenue. Then it sort of makes people realize that responding to comments on Facebook to that fan who could be annoying, but they're always there and they mean well, they're probably spending a lot of money on you. So there's Randy, thanks, Kevin, for answering that. Cool. Well, I think that's all the questions, Jay, so unless you had anything else.
No, I just, thank you guys so much for taking the time to dig in, and I know this was light on kind of the student or attendees, if you will, their questions, but I think the great things is a testament to how deep you guys dug and how perfectly you explained what was going on. And I think the challenge for anybody that's in a band is to go to BandPage and to sign up and start digging into this. And even if you don't have a huge fan base, like you said, Michael, for a band that might have even a couple hundred fans on email, I think this is still the toolkit to start build it. And I try to encourage people that listen to the Coil Report Live and read Chandler's report and attend our classes regularly or know me, the work that I do. It's like we're always talking about the need to keep building for tomorrow and keep planning for tomorrow. And if you're a legacy act that works with me as a client, we're talking about serving the fans, but also planning for the future. And for a baby band, it's planning for the future so that you can get to a point where you truly are serving the fans, but you're going to need a tool like Bandpage. And I think it's just really exciting what you guys have been doing. It's a pleasure to dig in, and from a full transparency, I will take you up, Kevin, on getting Sloan really ironed out, and for that matter, the figs too, because I think there's a lot of holes right now that I've seen just from looking at the Pandora thing that I go, okay, well then syndication's an issue and some other things are an issue, but I would love to dig in and have more of the data as you were walking through, Michael, and then be able to do something with that. So really exciting.
Yeah. Awesome.
Anything left? Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna let me just say a couple things. Number one, Jay and I archive the recording through the Google. It ends up on YouTube, and so we sort of open source it and announce it to the Berkeley community, and over time, a couple hundred people on all the ones. This is, I think, the 7th one that we've done, and so we've been putting that out there and sort of live on and reference. But I also want to say if Jay gets access and starts analyzing stuff, the other thing we like to use inside the classes, and there's sort of like each term we try to update a little bit or add stuff to it, is it's useful to have case study information, and Jay having access to what I would consider 2 legacy bands of differing sizes, Sloan being pretty famous in their home country and relatively well known in the U.S. of one level, and the Figs being just sort of ever present for the last 20-some years. It'll be interesting to look at that kind of data if the bands themselves are willing to share some of that. So I'm excited. So yeah.
So are we. Well, yeah, we do look forward to taking the deep dive on Sloan's data. So Jay, thank you for facilitating that, and Jay and Chandler, really thank you for this opportunity for us to get word out on what we're doing. Cool. And I love that you do this in general and make these widely available and bake them into the curriculum. It's a great series. So keep doing what you do.
Cool. Well, thanks.
Thanks so much, Michael. Thanks, Kevin. And with that, Chandler, sign us up for the week. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Okay.
Cheers.